Hello and welcome to In the Ethical Arena, the podcast and video series providing candid conversations with local public officials about the leadership, responsibility, and commitment linked to service for communities across South Florida. My name is Dr. Tony Andernon, and I am the Executive Director for the St. Thomas University Institute for Ethical Leadership. We are so proud to welcome you. Our host is Don Sleznick, an individual who continues to practice leadership and shape change with the people of South Florida after serving as the mayor of Coral Gables for 10 years. This episode, our podcast and video library, and the amazing perspectives our guests will be sharing create value for aspiring public leaders and those seeking to serve their fellow citizens to lead change for our world. And now, without further ado, I present Don Sleznick.
Pleased to have Oliver Gilbert as our guest in the ethical arena. Oliver is currently the mayor of Miami Gardens, one of South Florida's largest cities. He has served the citizens of this community for the past 12 years, and it is his second term as mayor. Just recently, we're pleased to tell you that he was elected to become a member of the Miami-Dade County Commission, which is going to be his next public service challenge. He's a proud graduate of Florida A&M University and the University of Miami School of Law. And we're extremely proud to note that the mayor is a faculty member here at St. Thomas. Well, welcome, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you all for having me. This is wonderful.
Well, we're just delighted that you could take the time. I know it must be a very busy time for you transitioning out of your role as mayor of the city into the role as a county commissioner. So we appreciate the time. But listen, before we get to some questions about the ethical arena, let me just ask you, what is your role at St. Thomas? I think that the people would like to hear about that.
You know, I'm the new executive director for the Center for Pandemic, Disaster, and Quarantine Studies. One of the things we noted after COVID-19 was that we weren't prepared from an intellectual perspective, from an infrastructure perspective, to actually deal with pandemics. We prepare for hurricanes. We prepare for, in other places in the country, we prepare for tornadoes. We prepare for those things. We don't prepare for an enemy that we can't see, that that exists in the air. How do we do that from a health perspective? How do we do that from a socioeconomic perspective? How do we do that from a continuity of government perspective? How do we do those things so that something like COVID doesn't knock us off our feet like this again? Because we know that we have to be able to exist without regard to what's out there. How do we develop our infrastructure around that? What are the thoughts around that? How do we find the best balanced approaches to actually keep our communities and our country going? So that's what the center does. I'm very excited. To working with a lot of the extraordinary academics at St. Thomas, working with President Armstrong. I think we're going to be a real, added bonus to the intellectual atmosphere.
Well, to say your plate is full, I think, is an understatement. you got your work cut out for you, and
yeah,
I can tell you that it's just one person. I appreciate what you're about and what you're going to be doing for the community. But listen, we've known each other for a long time, and I know how much you love what you do in public service. But what was it that motivated you to seek public office?
Well, I think that the initial thing that motivated me to seek public office was Miami Gardens actually became a city. When I grew up in this area, I grew up in an area they call it the Bajas, short for Bahamas. The people in that area, they migrated from the Bahamas earlier in the century. And so we grew up in these neighborhoods, really small, and we all knew each other. And it was really cool. Well, Miami Gardens incorporates in 2003 and becomes the largest predominantly African-American city in the state, the third largest city in the county. And so just having an understanding about who we could become communally, how we could define ourselves communally, how we could increase and improve upon things as a city, having local government that was actually connected and responsive to the residents. Because you didn't have to listen from afar. We listened from around the corner. We listened from the next seat in the church pew. We listened from the same aisle in the store. We listened from the same park because we all were here together, wanting to be a part of that. And so I think that was the immediate thing that I would always point to. But I think the larger thing, Don, is believing in what we can do as government. Sometimes we get into this thing where we think that government is bad. Government isn't bad. You know, when you talked about, you know, the inception of real government, when Greek philosophers talk about government came into existence to preserve life, you know, just the idea that we can do things together that we can't do individually. And sometimes there needs to be somebody to set from an aspirational and an inspirational and a planning and an architectural and an engineering perspective, what we can do when we purpose ourselves. You know, if you look around, some of the things we take for granted, you look at things that exist now nationally, like Social Security and Medicare, and things that we imagined that didn't exist before us, that we imagined these things into existence. We agreed and we figured it out. I think that we can still do things like that. So I don't think that government is bad. I think that sometimes government just chooses to do the wrong things. We need to figure out what we want as a community. Put all our resources together, and then let's do it together with the idea that we're going to build something, we're going to break something that's bad and build something that's better for our kids. We can do that. I believe that fundamentally, and I think that's why I got into public service.
Well, I can say that the response of the citizens have proved that they appreciate what you do, being elected twice as mayor and now to the county commission. But how would you describe your leadership style that you utilize to lead your city and soon to help lead the county?
Listen, there are people around Miami Gardens right now who are saying, leadership style, he's hands-on. Listen, I call it retail politics with wholesale ideas. So I don't think that you can be elevated by people if you're standing apart from them. I think you need to be with them. And so you see me do stuff like the Mayor's Fitness Challenge. You see me always involved in the community, visiting kids in schools, because I want to talk to them about the way I think so they understand the decisions that I make. And so it's hands-on in that respect, but it's not just my hands on the levels of government, but it's people and their hands on me, because they're able to touch a leader that they can actually influence. And I tell people all the time, you're not entitled to the answer that you want, but you are entitled to an answer. You're not entitled to a conversation that goes your way, but we can have the conversation. And so having that type of understanding of governance and leadership that's intimate with the people that you actually lead, having that type of understanding of government that says, hey, we're going to be a team in this city. So we're going to have some good city council persons. We're going to have some good staff. And I'm going to be the mayor, the singular voice for 113,000 people. I'm going to take that seriously. I'm going to honor their trust, the trust they gave to me when they elected me to be their mayor. And so I think it's hands-on in some respects. Some things I really don't bother with at all. But ultimately, everything I do is with the idea of honoring who my mother is, who she lives in Miami Gardens, and my son is, he lives in Miami Gardens, and the generations in between, how we do something for them, how we make it work.
You know, it's very interesting that you mentioned your mother and your son, because each of the mayors that we've interviewed always brings their family into the equation. And I think that's just such an important aspect. And you've reasserted that for us, that family, it starts with family and then spreads to the community, if you will.
Yes.
So I take it that you found that what you do is successful. I mean, it's not only been successful for you, but appreciated by your citizens. That's
You know what? It's one of those things that sometimes people get all into government. They think that, and elected officials do that. They'll start to either believe the one or two people that show up and scream at them, or believe the newspaper that says that they're doing a good job. Me, I just kind of stay the course. So if you develop your plan and you have faith in it and you've talked to people about it, you just keep on moving along, understanding that whatever you're undoing or you're redoing, someone had a vested interest in what it was. And whatever you're building, someone is going to be contrarian to what it can be. No matter what it is, you just keep on moving it. And it's that process. It's that telling people that we need to look at land use in a different way in Miami Gardens. That actually, I say it over and over again, and it ends up actually developing businesses here in Miami Gardens, because we're looking at land use. Because you can't just have a city full of single family homes. That if you want to create entrepreneurship and you want to create jobs, you have to create that atmosphere. How do we do those things? If you want your kids to have a diversity of activities, you have to invest in your parks. You got to do those things. Having that conversation and continuing to build. And I think what people are seeing now when they look at the success of Miami Gardens, look, this year we were an all-American city. One of the things that I said we would do, I said we'd be an all-American city. And I said that we'd have a financial reserve that was in excess of 20%. Well, the beginning of the year before COVID, we had a financial reserve that was around 37%. And this year, we won All-American City. But it wasn't, we didn't really win it this year, and we didn't really amass those reserves this year. We just followed the plan. And so I think what people are seeing now is the discipline in us following that plan and continuing to work.
I was saying that's great advice for the people that are going to be listening to this podcast. Follow the plan, stay the course, and do the right things. So listen, in this day and age, particularly, I mean, I'm sure that this is true throughout history, but since you and I live in this day and age, leaders are faced with ethical challenges and ethical issues.
The standard that I set for myself is probably a little higher than the standard that the law actually sets for folks. I think that the leadership, the ethics of leadership and the morality of living in leadership is always interesting. I think you should always start if you weren't the person making the decision, but the person who's going to be analyzing the decision, what would you want to see and what would you want to hear and what would you think was right if you weren't involved in it? Sometimes we have these conversations and we're not supposed to look at it from our perspective. We're supposed to be looking and sitting objectively, but it's natural inclination for people to sit and feel subjectively. Look, that's not what the ethical leadership is about. Ethical leadership is about how we provide a level of standard and service and leadership that exists and is transformative and transitions a community. How do we breed confidence in our governance? How do we do that? And to do that, you can't do it from a subjective point of view. You have to do it from an objective point of view. And that's kind of what I just see and I try to feel. And I think that sometimes I will over communicate with you because I believe that, one of the things I learned in law school was that there's certain rivers, if you will, that flow through every area of the law. Almost in every area of the law, notice is fairness. Now, whether you like what you're being told or not, notice is fairness. Over communicate what you're going to do. This is not going to be a secret. These are our plans. Give people an opportunity to come and talk about it. Because at the end of the day, no matter what decisions was made, you made it in a marketplace of ideas, in an open market of ideas. And I think having those type of dialogues and conversations is very helpful. And ultimately, you be guided by what you think is right, what you believe to be right.
Well, I think you raised a very good point, too, that there are legal ethical issues, and then there are ethical issues of the soul, if you will.
Yeah.
And so public leaders, public officials are faced with both. And I think you've explained that extremely well.
Yeah.
So, Mayor, before we end this conversation, wanted to ask you, that this is being recorded to be used at the Institute of Ethical Leadership at St. Thomas University for its students and its faculty, and in fact, the wider audience of the community. So any words of advice for people trying to create a place for themselves in this world and trying to lead a good ethical life while being a leader?
If I had any, and I'm not like Yoda or Buddha or anything, but if I had any advice, I just say believe that you can make it better. The greatest enemy to democracy is apathy. It's not communism, it's not socialism, it's not totalitarianism, it's not terrorism, it's apathy. That is what it is. It's us believing that it doesn't matter, that we don't matter, and not caring. It's not meant to exist this way. Our government isn't meant to exist that way. You have to actually believe that you can make something better. And so some people say I'm naive and I'm an idealist, but I believe in government. I believe in the aspirational values and words of the Pledge of Allegiance. I believe in the aspirational ideas that are set out in our Constitution. I believe that we designed a country that was meant to grow with us, because of us. You have to be willing to be a part of that. And to be a part of it, you guys got to believe. You got to believe. And so it just the simple act of believing will become contagious. If that became contagious, we wouldn't have to beg people to register to vote or be counted in the census. Wow. We wouldn't have to beg people to help each other, if we could just believe. So just if I would just pass on anything, you all, just believe. believe that you can make it better, and then be guided by your faith.
Well, that's a wonderful message to end this interview with, and we really want to thank you, Mayor Gilbert, for being with us. You have been inspirational, as a matter of fact, and I will go forward believing in what I can do because of you. So thank you.
Thank you, Don. I appreciate you.
Well, from us here at In the Ethical Arena, that's a wrap. Another episode in the books. We hope that you've enjoyed this episode, and we want to say thank you to the mayor for the time, perspective, and leadership shared today. As we close, it's apropos to note that leadership is not about knowing. It's about doing. The mayor puts this into practice each and every day, and we want to say thank you for that. We hope that you've enjoyed this installment of In the Ethical Arena and hope that you join us again next time. This is Tony Indodoro signing off and reminding you that leadership is a process, one that cultivates action that will grow into amazing things for our world. However, we need you to plant that seed. Thanks so much for listening. Take care out there and have a great day.